The nature of stupidity. Let me tell you something uncomfortable, but absolutely true. The most dangerous kind of stupid man is the one who doesn't know he's stupid. He's not the guy bumbling around, tripping over his own feet, or forgetting how to spell his own name. No, he walks with confidence, talks loud, explains everything, he thinks he knows the truth, he thinks he's smart. Meanwhile, quietly, his life is falling apart behind him, his relationships, crumbling, his career, stagnant, his mind, on autopilot. But he keeps talking, keeps preaching, and worst of all, he never listens. He speaks before he thinks, reacts before he observes, blames before he reflects. That, right there, is the root of real foolishness, not ignorance but a lack of awareness. A lack of self-control. You see, being smart isn't just about what you know. It's about what you notice. It's about seeing your own flaws, your patterns, your blind spots, and having the guts to fix them. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, said it perfectly. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. And that's exactly what the foolish man does. He lives in tomorrow, or worse, he lives in someone else's version of today. He's always chasing the next thing, the next validation, the next excuse, but he never shows up for the life he already has. Now here's something most people miss. You want to know if a man is truly wise, don't just watch what he does, listen to what he says. His words reveal his level of discipline, his pain tolerance, his self-respect, because the mouth is a mirror of the mind. You can train a man to behave, but you can't fake how he thinks, and how he speaks exposes that in seconds. That's why this matters. Because some phrases, some innocent-sounding phrases, are red flags. They expose weakness, they reveal a man who's lost, but doesn't know it, and if you repeat them long enough, they don't just reflect your mindset, they shape it. So let me ask you, what do your words say about you? Are they building your character, or betraying it? Are they the words of a warrior or the excuses of a man who gave up on himself a long time ago? This isn't about sounding smart, it's about being brutally honest. It's about spotting the subtle signs of self-sabotage in the way you speak every single day. Because let me tell you this, if you don't kill the weak words, those words will kill your potential. That's just the way I am. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard someone say, "That's just the way I am"? Maybe you've even said it yourself. I know I have, years ago, when I didn't know any better. On the surface, it sounds harmless, even honest, but under the surface, it's dangerous. You see, that phrase is a verbal prison sentence. It's what people say when they've given up, when they've stopped trying to grow. It's not a statement of identity. It's a declaration of surrender. It's like putting up a big neon sign that says, "I'm not interested in becoming better. I'm more comfortable staying stuck." And that's not strength, that's not confidence, that's slavery. You're locking yourself in a cage of your own making, and then pretending it's home. A truly strong man understands one thing: your personality is not a life sentence. It's clay. It's meant to be shaped. You weren't born angry. You weren't destined to be lazy. You didn't come into this world with a fixed mindset, a short temper, or a fear of change. Those were habits you learned. And that means you can unlearn them. Now here's where the Stoic perspective cuts through all the noise. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what does the foolish man do? He blames everything except himself. He says, "I'm like this because of my childhood," or "It's just my zodiac sign," or "It's in my DNA." It's all just noise, excuses dressed up like insight. Because the truth is this: you are not a fixed entity. You are a work in progress. Every day is a fresh opportunity to evolve or to rot. Let's get brutally honest here. The man who says, "That's just the way I am," isn't defending his identity, he's protecting his dysfunction. He's trying to avoid the hard work of transformation. Why? Because growth is painful, change is uncomfortable, and mediocrity is warm and familiar. But here's the cost. Every time you repeat that phrase, you cement a little more of your own limitations. You kill the future version of you, the stronger, wiser, freer version, before he even gets a chance to breathe. Let me give you a real-world example. I knew a guy. Let's call him Mark. Mark had a bad temper, explosive. One little inconvenience and he'd fly off the handle, at friends, family, even strangers. And every time someone called him out, you know what he'd say? "That's just the way I am. I've always been this way." But the truth was, he wasn't born that way. That temper? It was a defense mechanism, a habit formed from years of not knowing how to manage discomfort. But instead of facing it, he made it sacred instead of healing. He held onto it like a badge of honor. Until eventually, people stopped calling him out, and started leaving. His relationships fell apart, his opportunities dried up, but he still clung to that same phrase. That's just the way I am. Let me tell you something that might sting a little. You don't get to complain about your results if you're not willing to change your patterns. You don't get to ask for respect, for love, for freedom, while choosing the same small thinking, the same excuses, the same emotional outbursts. The man who refuses to evolve doesn't deserve what evolution brings. And I know, it's not easy, it's not supposed to be. Change requires brutal self-awareness. It demands that you confront the ugliest parts of yourself, not with shame, but with responsibility. That's what separates the fool from the wise. The fool seeks comfort in consistency. The wise man seeks truth in growth. Here's a Stoic truth worth remembering. Your environment might shape you, but you choose who you become. You can either use your past as a foundation to grow, or a prison to decay. So, if you catch yourself saying, "That's just the way I am," I want you to stop, pause. Ask yourself one question. Am I saying this because it's true, or because it's easier than facing the work? Because you're not stuck, you're not broken, you're just afraid of becoming someone you don't yet recognize. But here's the good news. That future version of you, the man who's more patient, more disciplined, more powerful, is already in you. He's just waiting for you to stop defending your limitations and start destroying them. So, the next time that phrase creeps up, bury it, replace it with this. That's who I was, but not who I choose to be. I don't care what people think. Let's talk about one of the most popular lies men tell themselves, a lie that sounds strong, bold, fearless. You've heard it before. Maybe you've said it yourself. I don't care what people think. Sounds tough, right? Like the mantra of a rebel, a lone wolf, a man above judgment. But here's the hard truth. Most of the time, it's just not true. In fact, the guys who say this the loudest are usually the ones who care the most. Let's break it down. Why would someone feel the need to say out loud that they don't care what others think? Because deep down, they're trying to convince themselves they're wearing emotional armor made out of words. But if your confidence needs to be announced, it's probably not real, it's performance. Stoic philosophy teaches us that real strength doesn't broadcast itself, it just is. A Stoic doesn't need to prove he's indifferent to opinions. He doesn't need to post, "I'm unbothered," memes or flex his emotional detachment on Instagram stories. He just lives according to his values, quietly, consistently. Because real self-respect is built in silence, not in declarations. Now don't get me wrong. There's a powerful truth hidden inside that phrase, the idea of not caring what people think. That's good. That's healthy, but the truth is, we all care on some level. We're wired to. The difference is how much you let that care control you. Here's what I've observed. The man who constantly says, "I don't care," is often the most reactive, the most easily offended, the most obsessed with proving himself. One negative comment ruins his whole day. One disapproving look makes him question himself, and yet, he claims to be unaffected. That's not Stoic. That's denial. Now compare that to a man who doesn't say much. He doesn't engage in petty arguments. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't flinch when misunderstood. He just does the work. He shows up, builds, grows, improves, and when someone talks behind his back, he lets it float away like smoke. That's real power. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who walks into a room and doesn't need to say a word, but everyone respects them anyway? That's not because they don't care, it's because they care about the right things. They've mastered themselves so deeply that outside noise doesn't shake their core. They don't waste time declaring who they are. They prove it through how they live. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." And that's the trap. When someone claims they're immune to judgment, they stop growing, they stop listening, they become obsessed with appearing strong rather than becoming strong. But strength isn't about being above opinions, it's about not being owned by them. Let me give you an example. There was a guy the first used to train with at the gym. Let's call him Darren. Big dude. Loud. Always talking about how little he cared what people thought, but if someone corrected his form or asked him to re-rack his weights, he'd explode. Get defensive. storm off. You see the irony? Meanwhile, there was another guy, quiet, focused, consistent, never bragged, never responded to drama, he just lifted, trained, got stronger week after week, month after month. Guess who had the respect of everyone in that gym? Not the one who talked about not caring, the one who didn't have to say a word. Now here's the big idea. You don't need to declare indifference, you just need to master your focus. When you're busy doing the work, building the life you believe in, chasing something bigger than applause, you stop needing the crowd's approval. That's why Stoics don't waste energy fighting opinions, they're too busy fighting themselves, their ego, their temptations, their distractions. So, the next time you feel the urge to say, I don't care what people think, ask yourself this: do I really not care, or am I just afraid of being judged? Because there's a big difference between strength and stubbornness, between confidence and defensiveness, between inner peace and performative toughness. And if you want to grow, truly grow, you have to be honest with yourself, you have to be willing to admit, yes, I care, but I won't let it control me. That's maturity, that's self-mastery, that's stoicism in real life. So stop trying to prove that you're unbothered, start proving that you're unshakable. The world doesn't need more tough talkers, it needs men who don't flinch in silence, men who choose purpose over popularity, men who don't need to say they're strong, because they've already become it. Why should I try if nothing changes? Let's talk about a phrase that sounds logical at first, but is secretly poison to your potential. You've heard it before. Maybe in a moment of frustration. You've even said it yourself. Why should I keep trying if nothing ever changes? Now pause right there. On the surface, it sounds like a fair question. Right, if you're putting in effort, and life isn't giving anything back, what's the point? But that question doesn't come from strength, it comes from exhaustion, impatience, and a silent craving for easy results. Let's be real. Most people don't want growth, they want proof of growth, instantly. They want to hit the gym for 2 weeks and see abs, they want to post 3 videos and go viral, they want to say sorry once and have all their broken relationships magically restored. And when that doesn't happen, they quit, they call it pointless, they say, see, I knew it wouldn't work. But here's the problem. Life is not a vending machine, you don't get to press a button, insert some effort, and receive instant gratification. That's not how real change works, that's not how mastery is built, and that's definitely not how character is forged. If you need quick results to keep going, then you're not committed to the process, you're addicted to outcomes. Let me say that again. If your effort depends on results, then you're not in love with the work, you're chasing the applause. But a Stoic man? He flips the script. He doesn't ask, is this working? After one setback he asks, who am I becoming by doing this, even when it's hard? Because the process is the reward. You don't train just to win. You train to become unshakable. You don't journal or meditate just to feel good. You do it to understand yourself. When things fall apart, you don't keep your word because it gets you something. You keep your word because that's who you've decided to be. Let me share a story. There was once a Japanese swordsman named Miyamoto Musashi, arguably the greatest of all time. He didn't ask, will this duel change my life? He didn't look for applause or comfort or a guaranteed win. He trained, prepared, showed up, again and again. His power wasn't in talent, it was in the quiet repetition of right action. Even when no one was watching, even when it hurt, even when it felt like nothing was improving. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped needing results to stay disciplined? What if you just kept swinging? Day after day, not because it's easy, not because it's guaranteed, but because that's the kind of man you've chosen to be? Because that's the truth. Discipline is doing what's right, especially when it feels pointless. Anyone can take action when things are working, anyone can stay motivated when the rewards are immediate. But what separates the amateurs from the exceptional is what you do when the feedback is silence, when you give it your all, and nothing seems to move. And here's the twist no one talks about. That moment when you want to quit because it seems hopeless, that's the moment that defines you. That's the threshold, and most people never cross it. They fall short by one more representative, one more conversation, one more day of patience. And then they say, see, nothing changed. But what if change was just one action away, and you walked away too soon? What if the wall was about to crack, and you just stopped swinging? Look, the Stoics knew something we tend to forget in this hyper-fast Results-obsessed world. You don't control the outcome. You only control the effort. That's it, that's the game. And if you can fall in love with that, the sweat, the silence, the uncertainty, then you become unstoppable. Because guess what? The man who keeps moving forward even when it feels pointless is the one who ends up breaking through. He doesn't wait to feel like it, he doesn't wait for signs, he becomes his own momentum. And over time that makes him dangerous, respected, unshakable. So the next time that voice creeps in, why bother? Nothing's changing. Answer it with this: because quitting guarantees nothing will. Because giving up isn't relief, it's regret on a time delay. And regret? It never forgets. So keep showing up, keep training, keep pushing forward with quiet strength. Because you weren't built to stop it, almost. You were built to break walls. I deserve better. Let's talk about one of the most seductive phrases people love to repeat. I deserve better. At first, it sounds empowering, right? Like something you'd find on an Instagram quote over a sunset background. I deserve better friends. I deserve more money. I deserve a relationship that values me. It feels like motivation, it feels like truth. But most of the time it's not truth, it's delusion in disguise. You see, when someone says, I deserve better, they're often skipping the most important question of all. Have you earned it? Have you built the discipline? Have you done the work? Have you become the kind of person who attracts and sustains the things you're asking for? Because here's what no one wants to admit. Desire without discipline is just entitlement. Saying, I deserve better, without effort is like saying you deserve a six-pack without ever going to the gym. It's like saying you deserve loyalty while being emotionally unavailable. It's like expecting a throne when you've never built a kingdom. And that's the trap a lot of men fall into. They want to feel like kings, but they're not willing to bleed like warriors. So they throw out this phrase to soothe themselves. I deserve better becomes a shield against responsibility, a warm blanket for mediocrity. But the Stoic doesn't think this way. He doesn't look at life and ask, what do I deserve? He asks, what must I give to be worthy of it? He understands that rewards are not handed out like participation trophies. They're earned through sweat, through scars, through daily self-mastery when no one's watching. Let me give you a real-life example. There was a guy the first New Year's ago. Let's call him Brandon. Brandon was constantly complaining about his job. He'd say, I deserve a better position. I should be a manager by now. I've been here for years. But if you looked at how he worked, he was always late, did the bare minimum, took long breaks, avoided responsibility. So I asked him once, what makes you think you deserve that promotion? And he said, because I've been here longer than everyone else. But longevity is not the same as excellence. Just because you've existed somewhere for a long time doesn't mean you've grown. Trees don't bear fruit just because they've been standing still. The truth is, you're not entitled to a better life just because you're tired of the one you have. You're not owed love, success, or admiration just because you want it. You earn it by who you become. You attract it by what you build. The Stoics would say, don't chase what you want. Chase who you need to become to be worthy of it. That's the shift, and it's a hard one. Because it forces you to stop playing the victim. It demands self-honesty. It requires you to say, if I don't have the life I want, maybe I haven't become the man who can carry it yet. And that stings, but it's the kind of pain that saves you. Because once you flip that switch, once you stop demanding more and start becoming more, everything changes. You stop whining about what you don't have and start working toward what you can earn. You stop chasing praise and start building value. You stop begging for better treatment and start commanding respect, through action, not attitude. So the next time that phrase pops into your head, I deserve better, pause. Ask yourself this. What have I done today to deserve better? What have I sacrificed, improved, confronted, or built? Because if the answer is nothing, then you don't deserve better yet. But that's the beauty of it. You can become the man who does. You can train, discipline, evolve. You can rise above entitlement and enter the arena of effort. And when that happens, you won't need to say, I deserve better. You'll be better. And that's all the universe really responds to. That's impossible. Let's talk about one of the most destructive things a man can say, and he often says it without even realizing what it reveals. That's impossible. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a judgment, a conclusion, but if you dig deeper, it's not a judgment, it's a confession. A confession that says, I've already given up. But here's the thing most men don't say. That's impossible, because something truly is impossible. They say it because they're unwilling to do what it takes. They see a man build a business from nothing and say, "Must have gotten lucky." They see someone in phenomenal shape and whisper, "Steroids." They see another man speak with calm, clear confidence and scoff, "He's fake." Why? Because if they admitted that success is possible, they'd also have to admit that they haven't worked hard enough to get there. And that hurts more than any failure. So it's easier to dismiss, easier to mock, easier to say, "That's impossible," than to say, "Maybe I could have done that if I had the guts." But let's get real. When you say something is impossible, what you're really doing is protecting your comfort zone. You're drawing a line in the sand and saying, "I'm not willing to suffer for that level of growth, so I'm going to pretend it's unreachable." But here's what the Stoics understood. Difficulty isn't something to fear, it's fuel. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body." Think about that. Every challenge you run from is a missed workout for your character. Every excuse you make is a skipped representative for your mind. You want to be strong, you want to be unshakable, then stop calling hard things impossible, and start calling them training. Let me give you a real-world example. A friend of mine once told me he wanted to start a podcast. He had the ideas, the stories, the passion, but he kept stalling, and eventually, he shrugged and said, "You know what? It's probably impossible to stand out these days. The market's too crowded. I missed my chance." Now, was that true? Absolutely not. He didn't miss his chance, he missed his commitment. He wasn't afraid of the mic, he was afraid of being average in the beginning, afraid of putting in years of work with no recognition. So instead of admitting that fear, he blamed the world, he called it impossible, and let himself off the hook. And that's what most people do. They don't fail at the goal, they fail at the grind. They fail at waking up early, they fail at getting uncomfortable, they fail at failing, which is part of the process. So let me ask you, what have you already decided is impossible for you? Is it building your dream career, getting into shape, fixing your relationship, starting over in life? Whatever it is, pause, step back, and ask the more honest question. Is this truly impossible, or am I just scared of what it demands from me? Because the truth is, greatness will cost you. It will cost you time, it will cost you comfort, it will cost you your ego. But it gives you back something far more valuable, a life you actually respect. A life where you don't have to lie to yourself anymore, a life where you're not watching other men rise and convincing yourself they cheated, a life where your potential doesn't die buried under the phrase, "That's impossible." The Stoics believed that pain was part of progress, that challenge was the path, not the obstacle. They trained their minds the way warriors trained their bodies. And they knew one thing. If you call something impossible, you give yourself permission to stay small. But if you call it difficult, and face it anyway, you grow. So the next time that voice in your head says, "That's impossible," replace it with this: "No, that's unfamiliar. That's hard. That's going to take everything I've got." And then give it everything. Because the man who trains in silence, who fights with discipline, who pushes through when it looks pointless, he becomes unstoppable. Not because the world made it easy, but because he stopped letting impossible be an excuse. The cure for stupidity. So let's bring it all together. We've talked about 6 dangerous phrases, 6 verbal warning signs of a man who's losing control of his mind, his discipline, and ultimately, his potential. But here's the truth most people never realize. Stupidity isn't about intelligence, it has nothing to do with IQ or academic degrees. You can be a college graduate and still be mentally lazy. You can be book smart and still ruin your own life with weak thinking. Stupidity, in its most dangerous form, is a way of seeing the world. It's a mindset, a reflex, a pattern of dodging reality and dressing it up in clever excuses. It's not what you know, it's how you think. And if you've recognized yourself in any of the phrases we've covered, good, that means you're awake. Because the cure for this kind of stupidity isn't more information, it's not self-help books, motivational quotes, or another YouTube video. It's brutal honesty with yourself. The kind of honesty that strips away your pride and leaves you face to face with your habits, your fears, and your excuses. The kind that forces you to admit, "I'm not who I say I am, yet. I haven't earned what I've been demanding. I've been hiding behind words instead of standing up with action." That's where change begins. And from there, you go silent. You stop announcing, you stop defending, you stop performing. You let your results speak for you. Because a wise man doesn't need to explain himself, he doesn't need to convince the world he's strong, he doesn't talk about his grind, he just grinds. While others shout, he watches while others complain. He builds while others wait for motivation. He moves with discipline. So if you truly want to become better, start by killing the weak phrases that keep you weak. Stop saying, "I don't care what people think," because you do, and that's okay. Just don't be ruled by it. Stop saying, "It's not my fault," even if it isn't, own it anyway. Because ownership is power. Stop saying, "I deserve better, earn better, build better, become better," and for the love of everything still sharp in you, stop saying, "That's just the way I am," because if you're not willing to change, you're not really living, you're decaying. Look, the world doesn't need more noise, it doesn't need more talkers, it doesn't need more excuses, more blame, more posturing. It needs men. Men who think like warriors, men who speak like builders, men who've killed the coward inside and chosen the narrow path of responsibility. So here's the final question. Will you keep saying what weak men say, or will you rise? Go silent, and let your life do the talking? The choice is yours. Be the weapon, be the example, be the one who breaks the cycle. Or fade into the crowd, just another man with a loud mouth and an empty life.